Recently, President Biden's commitment to law and order received an endorsement that was inadvertent, surprising, and completely hilarious. Intrigued? Then click that like and subscribe and enjoy the video. So as you all know, the Republican Party, particularly in the House of Representatives, is a bit of a clown show in the fact that it's chaotic, it's not particularly substantive, and they constantly step on rakes, politically speaking. So they're not very funny when they try to be, but when they don't try to be, like by pure accident, they're very often hilarious. Donald Trump is a great example of this. Very rarely, occasionally, but very rarely, was Donald Trump intentionally funny. It was usually when he was trying to be serious that he was the funniest he'd ever been. Like, for example, when he was trying to describe hurricanes in 2017 or 2018, when he was like, this hurricane is one of the wettest on record in terms of water, like stuff like that. That's a weird thing for a president to say. Or the time that he said that the George Washington's Minutemen and the Revolutionary Army, that they took over the airports, in the 1700s when airports didn't exist, stuff like that. That's when the Republican Party is at its funniest. And we have another example in the form of the gift that keeps on giving in terms of humor, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, this is a hot take because I don't spend quite a bit of time following Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert, but I think I've finally settled on which one of them is smarter. I think Lauren Boebert is smarter than Marjorie Taylor Greene. Certainly, she's a better speaker. And I know that's not saying much, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is hilarious in the stupid things that she says, but also how stupidly she says stupid things. And so recently during a Homeland Security congressional hearing, she said something that I think she intended to be as an indictment of President Biden's border policies. I think she intended to insult him. She intended to denigrate him. She intended to condemn him. But as people noticed at the time she said it, it actually lent itself well to a compliment. And then the people at Meidas Touch, which great organization, great group of people, they put together this beautiful advertisement for President Biden, which we need to listen to. It's hilarious. It's about 30 seconds long. So let's take a look.
In 2020, there were 4.8 thousand pounds of fentanyl seized by CBP. But in 2021, it increased to 11.2 thousand pounds of fentanyl was seized by the CBP. That is a direct result of Biden administration policies.
President Biden, protecting our border, keeping our country safe. Meidas Touch is responsible for the content of this advertising.
So yeah, you see the problem, right? With Marjorie Taylor Greene's words. She intended them to be insulting, right? But just by pointing out the disparity in terms of the number of drugs and fentanyl seized at the border, seized meaning captured by federal authorities, by highlighting that disparity and not pointing out, I mean, what she was trying to suggest is, look how much drugs are coming over the border. But she didn't actually make that point. All she focused on, the only thing she offered, was the disparity in the amount of drugs seized at the border. Well, if they're seized at the border, that's good. That's better than the alternative, which is that they're not seized at the border and make their way across without, being captured by federal authorities. Now, obviously, there is a fentanyl crisis at the southern border, to be sure. And no, that is not entirely the fault of President Biden or President Trump for that matter. The border security is an extremely complex issue. It's not just reliant on the Department of Homeland Security, for example. Much of the policies and the funding and the resources are available directly because of Congress. And Congress is the one that ultimately legislates border laws and things like that as well. So it's a really complex issue that multiple administrations and multiple Congresses have their share in terms of responsibility, plus the fact that it also pertains to foreign aid, right? Because the reason that so many migrants are trying to make their way to the United States is because they're in dire straits in their home countries, right? Now, you might be an isolationist and say, well, that's not the United States problem. It is our problem. We live in a globalist community, whether you like it or not. We're not going back. There's no way to unring that bell, which means if you want to deter people from coming over in droves, you have to help create a circumstance in which their home countries produce better results for them so that they don't feel the need to leave, right? So again, it's just an incredibly complex issue. Not only did she completely sanitize all of that, all she did was just say, hey, look, fewer drugs were caught at the border under Trump. Authorities seized fewer drugs at the border under Trump than Biden, which means, again, the unintended implication there is that Biden's doing a better job in terms of security because he's getting more drugs out of the hands of people trying to smuggle them in through the southern border. The other thing I'll just remind you, and we did a video about this, is just kind of a quick fact check here, but Republicans, I mean, again, it is true that we're seeing a fentanyl crisis at the southern border. We are seeing extraordinary contact at the southern border between border security, DHS, and customs and border patrol and things like that, and migrants, right? That is true. There is a legitimate problem here that President Biden does have responsibility for to some extent because he's the president of the United States. So does Homeland Security. So do Republicans and Democrats in the current Congress. So too do previous administrations. This is nothing new. But Republicans who hammer Biden on this never want to talk about the facts. And the facts are that if you look at this, border funding under Biden has not decreased. Border funding under Biden is effectively the same as it was on average during the Trump years. So I think the 4 Trump years, President Trump requested about $15.5 billion in border funding a year. For 2 years under Biden, he's averaged about $15 billion. So we're in the same ballpark. Same thing for staffing, right? So under President Trump, the Trump administration staffed between 19,430 and 19,740 Border Patrol agents. And it's effectively the same under the Biden administration, 19,338, 19,536. So the funding and the policies, like people talk about Title 42 policies, which are very harsh. It's what allowed the Trump administration to expel so many migrants. It's still in effect under the Biden administration. So the policies, the funding, and the staffing are effectively the same under Biden as they were under Trump. To say nothing of the fact that President Biden was able to get a commitment, $1 billion from Mexico to help, secure the southern border, as well as commitments from, I think it was Honduras and Colombia, and I think 2 other countries as well, to take more migrants that were stopped at the United States southern border, so that they could take them, right? So there are certain foreign policy and security commitments that have been made under Biden that Trump failed to get, right? But anyway, it was a great video that the Meidas Touch made, an inadvertent and hilarious endorsement from Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's going viral under #SaferWithBiden, so you should definitely check it out. And this is the sort of stuff that Republicans probably want to avoid doing, is giving President Biden inadvertent praise. But when they do, we should pounce on it like we have. Hey, you! Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, and I hope that you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. And if you absolutely hated the video, the best revenge for you is also to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. That'll teach me. If you want to share an opinion or share some feedback, go ahead and leave a comment, all right? 2023 is a year of change, hence the aggressive rebrand and commitment to new content. Inspired by my friends Luke Beasley and STV Philly, my personal goal for this channel is to hit 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So I'm hoping you'll do me a solid by spreading the word and the videos to potential fans and hate watchers alike. And in the meantime, we'll be pondering politics again with you very soon.